Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's webinar that we are doing on artificial intelligence in aviation data. And this webinar, we are doing it in partnership with ALG. ALG are global consultants who have over 25 years of global expertise in aviation consulting, and we have partnered with ALG for some of the consulting projects that AFRAA has done in the aviation industry. Before we start, just to welcome you all for making the time to join us. From our registrations, we are happy to see quite a good number of our airlines have joined, registered. We had 34 airlines registered from various departments, not just data and statistics. I see we have representatives from, we have a couple of country managers. We have representatives from strategy. We have representatives from sales, commercial, data and statistics, and technical departments as well. Welcome to the webinar. In fact, AI cuts across all the decision-making roles, all the departments in the airline. Before we start, I just want to start with a number, two numbers in fact, 60 to 85%. 60 to 85%. Let that sink in. That's the share of AI projects that fail to deliver. That's a big number. And we'll be unpacking what that means and why from our ALG consultants. Another number, 82%. So 82% of aviation companies think that they are getting ROI from AI. However, only 37% actually are. So we'll be unpacking that in details in today's webinar. And here's the truth about African aviation. African aviation is among the fastest growing regions in the world. This is as per the data that IATA has shared. So it's a very fast growing region, and year on year, 23% of traffic growth. And in terms of costs, is the highest cost region. So what does the discussion today have to do with our aviation industry? Well, we have this on one side, growth, which is very, very important. Then the question is, are we growing our returns as fast as we are growing our growth? Because if we have a high cost environment and we are growing, it means our cost will be growing. So how do we use AI, part of our strategy, to ensure that we rationalize our operation costs? If we get a return on AI, a return on investment on the AI. And that's why we are here in today's discussion. And allow me to share with you the agenda. It's going to be a webinar that will take place for the next 2 hours of discussion. We shall start with remarks from AFRAA Secretary General and from our colleagues at ALG. And then we shall now have the core of the session, which will be AI in aviation data. So what does that mean in this context? We shall look at automating data cleaning and validation, detecting anomalies in traffic and financial data, supporting forecasting and trend analysis. And then we shall have a couple of use cases. It's important for us to learn from the examples and see how well we can relate with that. And if it has worked elsewhere, how can we make it work for our airline? Then we shall be looking at examples aligned with industry practices and specifically what we can do in the African context. And this shall be covered in 2 presentations. So how we shall run the show: after our first presenter does their content, takes us through their presentation, we shall open the floor for Q&A, and then we shall take the second part of the presentation, take the Q&A, and then at the tail end, we shall ensure that we do an open forum for any other question that may not have been addressed and that shall bring us to the tail end of the webinar. We do hope that you shall find the webinar useful, and you can put on the chat box your expectations, and that at the end of the webinar, we shall expect that your expectations shall be met. So you can just put your comment there on the chat box. What are you expecting to gain out of today's webinar? So first things first, welcome remarks from AFRAA Secretary General, Mr. Abderrahmane Berté. SG, you have the floor. I see you're connected, but you're still on mute. You're still on mute, SG? As we wait for Mr. Abderrahmane to look into the technical challenge, we shall proceed to have remarks from our co-hosts for this webinar, ALG. So I shall invite Ms. Nuria Alsina, Principal at ALG, to deliver her remarks. Nuria?
Thank you, Maureen, for the introduction. It's a pleasure for us to be here with you, being able to share our experience with the audience, and hopefully it will be useful for all of you. Glad to hear as well that it raised the attention from the different areas within the airlines, and not only the data part, mostly because at the end of the day, the data teams are enablers within the airline industry, and the business areas. It's key that they are involved, that they know what this goes about, and actually it's usually our focus on explaining them exactly what's in it for them in this, and they have to be the leaders in this type of discussions, not come from the technical, not AI for the sake of AI, but instead let's use AI, let's use data where it actually brings value to our business. As you mentioned, we are growing very fast in the African region. Let's take all the chances we have to actually convert this growth into revenue and into making the business sustainable over time and efficient over time. That being said, from our end, quick presentation on ALG. As mentioned, we are a consulting company specialized in transportation, and in particular, our main focus is aviation. We've been active and working and advising our clients for more than 30 years, and in particularly more than 25 years in Africa, in different countries, working for several airlines such as RAM, Ethiopian, Air France, Sky, also the African Union, Aircode Ivory, ASECNA, with ICAO in Angola as well. So we are quite familiar with your main challenges and the characteristics of aviation in Africa, which has certain singularities that make it a different business from other areas, and this needs to be taken into account when we define the strategies. In this sense, we've prepared this presentation focusing on your main topics of interest, and with this focus in mind of actually what could bring value to the region and to the airlines of the region. So I hope you enjoy it, and I hope to hear as well your feedback and questions at the very end, so that if there's any open point that we haven't been able to cover within the presentation, at least let's see if we can cover it in the questions.
Thank you very much, Nuria, for your remarks. Definitely, we are excited to have you on board and unpack the use of AI in data analysis. I want to now switch to Mr. Abderrahmane. I hope the technical issue has been addressed. You can deliver your remarks.
Thank you, Maureen. I hope now you can see me and hear me. I apologize for the technical issue. I couldn't unmute myself. And just I want to welcome all the participants to this webinar, and also to thank ALG for putting for us together this workshop on artificial intelligence use in aviation data. As we all know, artificial intelligence is revolutionizing the world in many areas. So for us as an airline industry, it's important to look at what can we do forward with the data we collect in terms of artificial intelligence utilization. There are, of course, many areas, even in an airline, where artificial intelligence can bring benefits. So it's important from this discussion to look at the possibilities to take benefit of artificial intelligence, and maybe going forward for every airline to look at where they can use these tools, because of course it's important also to focus on some priorities at every airline's level. So I welcome you again, and I do hope that this webinar will be a very fruitful one. And thank you, and let us start the webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abderrahman, for your remarks. Definitely, this is an important discussion on how we can use AI to revolutionize our air transport industry. Looking at the chat box, thank you very much, Rosemary, on your expectations for the webinar. Rosemary is our chairperson for the Aeropolitical Committee at AFRAA, and your expectation is that you look forward to learn how AI data can improve efficiency for your airline. Thank you very much, Nelly Mayaka, Skyward Airlines. And Nelly hopes to learn how AI can improve revenue management, demand forecasting, distribution, and operational efficiency. I see also we have Al Mustafa, who says the expectation is to learn how AI can be benefit for CAA. We actually do have a couple of participants from CAAs, and I've also seen some students joining us. It's important to start learning early, and some non-airline organization. Welcome on board. So meet our speakers. Before I hand over to them to take us through the webinar, you've already heard from Nuria Alsina, who is a principal at ALG. She is an aeronautical engineer, head of digitalization and advanced analytics. And our co-presenter as well is Antonio Cabeza, senior engagement manager at ALG. He's also an aeronautical engineer with a master's in big data. I now hand over to you, our colleagues from ALG. I'll stop sharing my screen, and then you can start sharing from your end. So as you share your screen, Valucien, on the comments, expectation is to want to learn how AI can impact airline industry, specifically Air Tanzania company. Thank you very much. So Nuria, you have the floor.
Thank you, Maureen, and thanks the people who participated in the chat expressing your expectations. I hope that we covered most of them. Of course, we focused mostly the presentation with small focus on big focus mostly on airlines, as we expected it to be the main audience, but plenty of the presentation and the webinar can be easily translated to CAAs. There's a part that is more generic on processes, and so that these will be fully covered, but as well on the examples. And so I hope you will be able to find this mapping or this link between airline and CAA. So hopefully it will be as well interesting from those not so airline focused participants. Thank you, Maureen, for introducing ourselves. As mentioned, both Antonio and myself, we work at ALG. We are both aeronautical engineers with a background in consulting, specialized in aviation, mostly operations and safety. And at a certain point in our careers, we decided to dedicate a part of our time to train ourselves in data, big data, artificial intelligence, and so on, and started developing this kind of activity within our clients, which are traditionally airlines, airports, ANSPs, CAAs, etc., etc. Here you have a bit of a picture of what is ALG. As mentioned, more than 25 years of experience in the business of consulting within transportation on all modes of transportation, but it's true that our main focus has always been aviation, with more than 50% of our share of business in that area. Within ALG, we have a dedicated team of more than 30 professionals dedicated to data. And when we say data, we cover from digital transformation to digital capabilities and technology. So this means from strategy to actual implementation and guidance of our clients in actually adopting these new technologies, but very much focused on ensuring that whatever we implement in the industry actually makes sense from a business perspective. As mentioned at the beginning, AI for AI and technology for the sake of technology, it doesn't make sense. It does not bring any ROI. So we try to avoid that as much as possible and use the appropriate technology to where it will actually add value to our business. So if we can continue with the presentation. I think you stopped sharing, Antonio.
No.
It's coming. Okay. So already we have already been introduced, but here we included some logos of our clients and particular focus of our experience in the region. As you see, we've been quite active within the full African spectrum, and we are very happy to have all this representation within our portfolio of clients. So getting a bit more into the topic. Before we start actually introducing the topic and explaining you what we want to explain, we wanted to have a bit of additional collaboration participation from your end. So here you have a QR code to join us at Slido. And there we will have a couple of questions that we want to cover at certain points within the presentation, so that we can as well gather your feedback and your inputs in where you are actually and what are your main challenges within this topic, so that we can either adapt the conversation as it flows, and as well put some remarks if needed, if we see in some particular topic. So I hope you've had the time to start joining us at Slido. And we will activate the first question that it is how, let's start from the beginning. How would you describe your organization's AI maturity? So we will give, let's say, 30 seconds for you to access and start participating.
Or otherwise, we can lead the participants to answer the question, and at the very end of the block, we'll review the answer and we'll go with the next question.
Perfect. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it like this. So then, yeah, I hope you had the time to scan the code or get the link. Maybe you can copy the link to the
yes,
to the comment section, so that you have it available at.
I will copy the link now to the comments.
In case someone hasn't had the time to copy it or cannot scan the QR code, it is easier for you to access. Okay. And let's take your time to answer the questions while Antonio will start
with the first
guiding us on the problem. Yeah.
So Thank you very much, Nuria. Thank you, Maureen. Thank you, Mr. Secretary General, and to the whole AFRA team for inviting us. And thank you for the more, I believe, 79 participants that we have connected today for your time, for your attendance to this webinar. We'll start with the first block, which is AI hype and the return on investment problem. Okay. As you know, everyone is speaking about AI. AI is everywhere in all the newspapers, in all the blogs you read. There's a lot of LinkedIn posts. I believe that you've seen them, no, even created or not created by AI, but they're out there. No, everyone is talking about AI. And when we speak about AI nowadays, we're speaking about a very specific technology of AI, which is large language models, no, OpenAI, Claude, that kind of things. But there is a problem. There is a problem with this. With every hype, it comes a problem on the adaptation. Are we sure that our investments are secured if we just adopt AI for the sake of AI? And this is a discussion that we've been having with the industry during the past years, particularly when we need to define strategies for them to adopt AI. So that's the first block. That's the purpose of the first block, to give you some reflections around that. Maureen has already introduced this, but where we stand, no, that's the first baseline. African aviation is growing a lot, okay? Plus 23% of passenger growth in 2026 as per IATA. The traffic is growing a lot, but as well the operating cost, not only in Africa, but worldwide, fuel costs are skyrocketing. To have secured manforce is as well very difficult, in particular areas, operational areas of our value chain, and as well some additional indicators that compromise or define a little bit our operational boundaries, which is an average fleet age of almost 70 years. The typical benchmark is around 11 years, which as well comes with greater fuel consumption, more expenses in terms of maintenance, and in the Africa markets of below 7 flights per week of 64%. This comes from Embraer. This is a little bit the context. So African market is growing, but as well our costs are scaling. The thing is how AI can support us into this. Because at the very end, when we have in mind our strategic objectives are mostly four, no? There are more, okay? We take a look into ACAO, key performance areas, and the GASP and the GAMP and the global strategic objectives of the industry. There are more, but we could somehow define four. And the four of them tells us the same story, which is we want to grow, but we need to be resilient as we continue growing. Let me give you an example. Safety. Okay, we typically manage safety, or we traditionally manage safety in a reactive way, right? We receive reports. At the best, we have a certain flight data management program, something like that. We evaluate the events, and based on that, we try to include some mitigation measures to manage our operations safely. But what we've seen is that there is a lot of new hazards that are coming that we haven't anticipated. GNSS spoofing. I believe that you may have experienced it if you are flying under specific geolocations. Integration between security and safety issues. There are cyber attack issues. Some hazards that are not within safety that come outside but are impacting our safety. There are many more environmental, new turbulences, encounters that we haven't experienced before. So there is a new set of hazards that are impacting our safety. As well on capacity. As we grow, we need to make sure that we are using our capacity efficiently. I've seen some questions already. How I use AI to improve my capacity. And environment, of course, which is part of the agenda, the worldwide agenda of the aviation industry, no? The transition towards new types of fuel, no, the SAF or the even new energy schemes, no, and finally cost efficiency. We need to gather everything, but we need to be efficient in the way that we use the resources that we put in place, not to operate. So the question is, how can we use AI to improve all this, and how the aviation industry has been using AI to improve all of this? The answer is a little bit in our timeline, because AI is not new to aviation. As a matter of fact, aviation is very digital at its very core. The thing is that we need to revisit a little bit the definition of AI, and I will not enter into specifics, but AI is many more things beyond what we understand nowadays, no? OpenAI and so on and so forth. Let me insist into that. Rule-based, machine learning, deep learning. There are many types, natural language processing. There are many types of AI, and we've been introducing them from the very beginning in the aviation. in the 1995 digital basics. No, do you remember the introduction of the self-service or digitization of the checking processes? In the early 20s, the collaboration integration, we had some sensors. Let's start integrating all of them, and even collaboration concepts, no, such as the airport collaborative decision-making process. Then biometrics, IoT, no, we started to gather more sensorics, and beyond that, we started developing the first AI proof of concepts, machine learning back then. And nowadays, of course, in the 20s, we had the increase of AI and the need for many operators and many airports, many aviation stakeholders to start gathering all this data. They realized, listen, this data is an asset. How I can take benefit of that? I need a data platform. I need a single source of truth to build on top of that some capabilities, no? And where we are heading now is towards AI native. These new LLMs, now yes, LLMs are providing a certain set of layers, orchestration, reasonable layers, no? Capability that is able to somehow orchestrate in an automatic way all the capabilities that we have built so far. So this is a little bit the timeline in terms of AI adoption in aviation. And the thing is, AI is already generating value in our industry. Here you have 4 different examples. For instance, in operations, Lufthansa with SITA, with the automated lost baggage rerouting, with more than 80% of Lufthansa mishandled luggage processed through this system. Computer vision for luggage scanning, in the case of, this is the Department of Homeland Security in the US, with a reduction on 50% in the pat-down searches. Or a platform from AirAsia on revenue optimization. I've seen some questions on revenue optimization. You see, revenue optimization and customer experience, customer management is quite related to this platform, which has many components. One thing is the dynamic pricing of the different products they have, not only the ticket, but as well bundlings of other potential products. They have as well the way of managing customers, no? And they've seen an increase of 30%, which is a lot, in the improvement of the passenger experience KPIs. And for instance, the final one, which is AI for updated crew management. I've seen as well some questions on the operation side. For instance, disruptions, a way of dynamically roster and manage my crew in Southwest, no, with plus 200 person hours saved thanks to this solution. So we've seen many solutions out there, AI, that are implementing or are adopting value or are providing value. But just to be clear as well, none of them, at least the example that we're showing, are mostly based on LLMs. That is OpenAI, ChatGPT, and so on and so forth. And however, in the news, we've seen that there is a lot of investment around there. The thing is that there is not always return on investment. As a matter of fact, you may have seen this, but there is a lot of companies burning tokens, no, buying a lot of, investing a lot in adoption. But there is a study in the MIT that says that between 60 and 80% of the AI projects will fail at providing an actual return, economical return. Okay, we've done some surveys as well through our network of clients, and what we realized that when we ask, "Are you prepared to take AI? Are you taking AI?" We would say that yes, 82% of the aviation companies believe that they are ahead of the competitors in AI adoption. But truth said is that when you enter into the specifics, what platform, what capability do you have, what teams do you have, only around 35% have the required enablers to scale AI effectively. Because this is not only about investing on new licenses, new brand licenses on ChatGPT or Copilot and so on and so forth. It's about strategizing and building the right foundations in your organizations to adopt AI in an effective way. Okay, so why? Because we've said this many times. Nuria have already introduced this. AI for the sake of AI does not work. If we are to automate the process with AI and the process is broken, there is no reflection around that process, internal company process, it will just make the results bad faster. Some months ago, I was discussing this with a director general of a civil aviation authority, and they were having a very big AI adoption program. They wanted to automatize many internal civil aviation. I've seen this question as well. Civil aviation authority processes, as it could be management of audits or management of complaints. No, very bottleneck and human man effort intensive capabilities. But the discussion we were having there is they realized after quite long and quite investment, that they were approaching the problem in a not very efficient way, because they were reflecting, okay, I have this process, how I put AI into this, instead of saying how I imagine that my new process would look like, and AI could contribute into this. So these are two completely things. Automatizing AI and outing AI for the sake of AI might not be efficient. Otherwise, we need to think how AI can reformulate the way that my processes are to make them provide some return into my operations. And with that, the final element that I'd like to bring to the table is the how. You need to link. So the typical thing here is, I want to look outside and go for some technological vendors and just buy any new technological solution. And there is very beautiful new technologies out there to be implemented. But otherwise, it's also the potential of build. Either way, buy or build, the thing is that you need to make sure that you have an alignment, a strategic reflection on how these solutions will contribute to your KPIs. Do you want to improve your operational efficiency, your turnarounds? There are KPIs for that. Map the processes and understand how a particular technology, AI solution, could contribute into that process, and how this particular solution could contribute to that KPI. Will reduce effort, will reduce time. This can be translated in money, and this money will justify or not the investment in that technological solution. The same for commercial revenue, the same for enterprise effectiveness. If you are into exploring whether to use Copilot or not Copilot with Microsoft, it's a great tool, but you need to understand how are you going to use Copilot within your organization. Is for particular corporate processes, is for some very document-heavy processes that you have in your operational departments. That's the kind of reflections that you need to do before investing into AI solutions. It's the only way to have a return at the very end of the project. And with that, we are closing the very first block. We would welcome now any question that you may have on this block. I know that we've seen many other questions that we would like to handle at the end of the session. Questions that we have. Let me check the chat.
Thank you, Antonio. We don't yet have any questions on the Q&A. So ladies and gentlemen, you can put your questions on the Q&A tab, or if you prefer on the chat box. But as we wait for you to post your questions, I can read through some of the additional expectations that were sent in. And I'm seeing we also have an ask for AFRAA. So we have Air Mauritius. We expect the workshop to move beyond AI concepts and focus on practical aviation use cases that deliver measurable operational value. In particular, we would like to see real-world applications of AI to aviation data in areas such as data validation, forecasting, anomaly detection, and decision support, together with the data quality, governance, and security foundations required for successful implementation. I think that you'll cover, Antonio and Nuria, on the case studies.
Yes,
and then,
exactly.
Perfect. And then he also asks further, we expect AFRAA to outline how it will support member airlines in advancing their AI and data maturity through common governance frameworks, benchmarking, best practices, capability development, and collaborative initiatives that enable airlines to adopt AI effectively, securely, and with confidence. Thank you for that from Air Mauritius. Then for the questions, they've started coming in, Antonio. So we have the first question from...
I can see some questions here already in the slide. There is a question from Anonymous that says, when you say 60 to 85% of investment on AI fail to produce a return on investment, does it mean that they don't improve the processes? Precisely. They don't improve the processes, or they don't... The thing is, here is a balance between how much these AI solutions cost, because most of these AI solutions have an OPEX, so a recurrent cost, tokens or whatever, or licenses, and how much these processes are improved. If it improved, it can be reduction on time. This is a cost on the effort, right? Can be a non-enough increase on the revenues. So there are savings and there are benefits. The thing is that we need to build somehow a little business case around the adoption of AI. Again, can be just reduction on time, could be improvement or more throughput in terms of, I don't know, more later on we'll share with you a case that we did for an airline on the visibility or predictability on the turnaround, which increases the number of flights. There is an increase of the throughput. There are different metrics that could be used to measure the impact or the ROI of an AI introduction. Are you able to provide a matrix of applicable AI tools to various departments within an airline? What we have in ALG is an inventory, in fact, and that's what we recommend the clients to do, to build an inventory of solutions for different departments, as you say, because there are many different, and to differentiate those inventories or those AI that should be developed or built somehow within the corporate, within the company, or those that could be built. And you may say, well, I don't have a data team and so on and so forth. It might be something simple. Maybe you need to purchase a Copilot license and just to configure some agents. It's quite straightforward. But that's the balance that should be reflected by different corporates.
Yeah, at the end here, we need to take into consideration that, even though all airlines are actually flying flights and carrying either person or cargo from point A to point B, there's no one fits all, because each operation from each airline differs in a certain manner from another airline, because of the network configuration, because of the fleet, because of the actual type of service that is offered to the customers, etc., etc. Therefore, having this like one fits all, and we have one strategy that can fit each and every airline, it's not something that we would recommend. Of course, you can have some guidelines, high-level guidelines for any airline, for any department, and this is something that is very useful. It should be tailored to your actual needs.
And to your actual strategy, no? Because that's precisely the idea. Not all of you have the same strategy. You are playing different games. The thing is how AI fits best to your own strategy. How is AI governance risks incorporated within the operator processes? That's a very good question. And there is a lot of, I would like to differentiate two things here. There is one thing, which is AI trustworthiness framework, which I don't know if you know it, but there is a huge development. Europe, in fact, is leading some of it, okay, through the AI Act that we call it. Then EASA, through the transposition, is trying to build like a framework to ensure not only the governance, but the validation and the operation of AI solutions within different critical levels, no? Because depending on whether AI is more or less introduced in your operation, it's only assisting or it's automating particular critical, then you need further or less governance. And AI governance have different levels, from the actual model to the data to the people using it. There are different levels to include that. Of course, all of this should be within the integrated risk management capability. So there is the address of the AI solution itself, but all of this should be somehow integrated within the overall integrated risk capability or management system of the corporate. So at the very end is as any other risk management system, no? Yeah. Safety, security, financial, environmental, all of them typically managed in separate. AI will have its own by IT or the department responsible for that, but at the very end they should somehow be consolidated at a corporate level. Are the risks shared with clients using the AI tools? To what extent is that included within the contract? I'm not sure that I'm understanding the question.
Yeah, I guess that here you're trying to capture if the risks of using AI, usually vendors using or selling this AI tool, include somehow responsibility coverage or something for that. I guess that depends from each AI tool, and also that's why we need to take into account, and linking it with the previous question, we need to have a proper understanding of the risks that we are assuming with each introduction of AI. Where do we introduce these tools, and where do we maybe now are not ready to introduce these tools because we're not ready to assume these risks, and then of course check always the different license of use or contracts that we have with our clients. Here, for example, we see a lot, and it because it's quite attractive for some for some employees in our organizations, here in airlines, airports, we've seen it everywhere, to use open and free licenses of certain AI tools. And that implies a huge risk, particularly if these employees are not aware of what is happening behind that. And particularly if they are, for example, introducing sensitive data when they ask questions to ChatGPT, for example, to name one, and so on and so forth. So for that, I would say it's not just contract-wise, it goes more with this incorporating the AI governance risk, and it has a lot more to do not only with contract and with technology, but as well with training, with adoption of AI on our staff, so that they are well aware and well informed of how to use the different tools that they have available.
I believe that with that one, you have answered as well the next one, which is how safe are airline data on AI. I would propose to look at the poll. Let's see if there are some answers already. We are exploring AI opportunities, 64%. We have not started yet, 29%. We have AI solutions in production, 7%. Okay. We are running pilot projects. So as we can see, there are, I guess that I would like to have a discussion with the 7%, but I guess that there are some already champions out there, no, that are trying to adopt some early AI solutions, even increasing now, 30%. This is like a race, no, between the different layers, but somehow we can see the picture, no. And most of you are exploring AI opportunities because you are in this kind of reflection, no, inventory. Let's see what we want to do in terms of AI adoption, which is similar. I believe that this picture, no, Nuria, is similar to what we've seen out there in the industry, no, quite sure. Okay. Maureen, we would propose, I don't know, if you continue.
Yes, we have some questions on the chat box. We can also take them as well before the second part of the presentation.
Sure. Yes, sure.
Yes, so we have Aliyah from Bernick Aviation Services who asks, how can AI-based data analytics be applied to ground handling companies and airports to improve turnaround performance, safety, resource planning, and operational efficiency?
Today, after in block 3, we are providing 2 case studies, one on safety and one on turnaround, specifically predictability on the turnaround. So bear with us and we'll answer the question with a specific case. Okay.
Okay.
Maureen, do you think
we have another question as well we can take? Mark Duke, who asks, how can AI enhance the passenger experience from booking and check-in to baggage handling and post-flight customer support?
I believe that we are not touching any of those cases, right, Nuria? I don't know if we have some.
Maybe not so much specifically, but I guess some of the practical use cases that we are actually touching can be inspirational on that part, as they are tackling, for example, the one on safety. We're tackling how to better use natural language processing and chatbots, and so to improve reporting. Something similar could be studied and is being used for some of these areas.
On those areas, to give some visibility, there are many solutions out there that are CRM, and as well in terms of let's say selling portals that are increasingly incorporating AI layers into their systems, and there are different ways of approaching this. For example, in terms of baggage handling, it could be handled from a service operational service perspective. For instance, increasing the predictability on the airport side. In that case, for instance, the baggage arrivals could improve the KPIs overall, which is the area impacting the customer experience. But as well, from the booking and check-in, there are different capabilities, as I've said, more like the ticketing platforms, which somehow give the airline visibility on the ways, on the click-through, let's say, flow of the different passengers, that as well somehow through AI can be optimized, and with that improve the passenger experience from a reservation perspective, bundling of products, that kind of thing. And as well the post-flight customer support, which is very important. There is a lot of LLM based, the typical agents, AI agents, solutions in that regard. There are many commercial products that are being developed, and as well some but there are some success cases of airport and airlines that are building their own. No?
Okay, thank you. We have another question from Huda, who asks, what should be the top 5 priorities for AI implementation for aviation in Africa, and what will be the top 5 challenges?
That's a big one. Top 5 priorities and top 5. What I would say is that the top 5 challenges, I believe that in Africa and in any place are the same. The first one, I believe, it's to make sure that we have right priorities and right strategies clear. Okay, and with that, we should reflect on the actual aviation strategy, national and at airline level, to handle the AI properly. And the second one, I will merge all of them, but I would focus not only into that, but on the enablers. This is not only about money, investing into AI. You need to have the right enablers. That is, you need to have the right data foundations.
Yeah.
You need to have the right data or digital or AI culture. I won't say operating model, the right people. Depending on the airline, might not need an actual data department full-fledged with a lot of data scientists and so forth, but at least a reflection and the right cultural approach to AI adoption, even led by the IT department of the airline. It might be the challenge, both the challenge and the priority. The priority here should be to understand, to identify the quick wins that would land or pave the way towards those strategic objectives, which are the smallest. What is the next smallest step towards adoption of AI, increasing or improving our indicators? That would be the priority.
Okay, thank you. And the next question is, for an airline that's beginning their AI journey, what will be the best first use to implement in a strategy or performance reporting function? This is from Lorato.
In a strategy or performance reporting function.
Where should they start?
There it depends a lot. Actually, what is your starting point? And there, and I come back to what Antonio just mentioned on the enablers, where we are right now, because sometimes, and I hear it from plenty of clients, they say, no, I'm at the very beginning of the journey, but the very beginning of the journey from one airline to another one, it might be very, very different. Because it depends a lot on the previous data strategies, data enablers, digital strategies, etc., etc. It's not the same the beginning of the journey on AI from a company who has had a very clean and smooth or advanced data strategy so far, so that they already have a pretty good collection of data. They have a good data culture in terms of understanding their data, having proper cleaning processes, and so that's quite a high starting point, because we are basing on proper enablers. And some others, instead, their starting point is a bit previous to that one. So there, depending on exactly what is your current status, your first use case will be one or another. And also, you always need to mix this, as mentioned, with your actual strategy. So what is your main pain point or your main KPI that you need to improve from a strategic perspective, and see if there's something that we can start doing there.
Precisely. You have the data. If not, maybe to build enablers. You have the data and you have already some dashboards. Maybe then we could explore some AI-based document generation to reduce the time that it takes you to report to the C level. No? So depending on the maturity where we start, that will define the next quick win.
Okay, thank you for that. Then we have another question, and this one is very relevant for today's discussion on ROI. So Valusian asks, is trying to think of any current AI use cases delivering the highest return on investment for African airlines. Do you have any examples?
The highest return. Without a business case, I wouldn't answer. But the highest return, I guess, that on African Airlines, I would focus on operational cost, no? Reduction, actual cost, no? We've seen it in the key indicators. Cost is tight in the margins. I would focus into that, and for that, what I would say is vision on the different operational milestones, and provide at the very end some predictability on the milestones. Trying to rationalize as much as possible what that means, because you in operational AI operational investments, you can invest as much as you want. As you know, there are very a lot of technical vendors.
And from Farouk, how do you address the historical gap in fleet utilization or scheduling logs? How does ALG recommend addressing the missing gaps of this problem once we implement AI in our system?
I'm not sure I quite grasp the actual intent of the question. I mean, I guess you're mentioning or you're referring to historical low fleet utilization or scheduling logs, or lack of data on fleet utilization and scheduling logs, because it differs a bit. If we are more focusing on, and the problem is mostly that historically our fleet utilization has been low and we want to increase it, then it's one problem that we need to tackle on how to actually operationalize that. On the other side, if what you're referring is to the lack of information or data on that particular topic, well, we need to see how relevant for the strategic use cases that we need to put in place, or that we want to put in place, that is, and whether if there is any assumptions or approximation that we can use to start walking this journey. Of course, the ideal case is having full-fledged historical data with a lot of granularity and high quality. Usually that is not the case, not in Africa, not anywhere in the world, honestly. So we need to invest sometimes in strategies of either trying to fill this gap, sometimes with assumptions, sometimes with benchmarks, or with industry-wide information, sometimes trying to navigate through the use cases and understanding that there might be some use cases that we cannot start implementing until we have a proper database of that.
And the last question from the chat box, is there any tailored AI assistant that can carry out deep research on aviation-related processes other than the well-known ones like Gemini, Claude, etc.? This is from Joy Akpan.
I wouldn't. We have like a capability in ALG called Tech Radar. We keep looking to the different developments in the aviation industry, mostly AI solutions. And as far as I recall, I believe that there is none of that. But I will answer most probably the why. Most of these AI LMs that you are mentioning are fine-tuning solutions from the base technology that you've mentioned. So basically are fine-tunings of Geminis, of Claude, and so on and so forth, because those are the companies that are investing really in the base technology. So what I expect is that there will be no like a cross AI super intelligent capability, or let's see, because with the AI evolution, we never know. But more like tailored niche AI agents or AI solutions for specific assessments. Maybe for operational, the typical technological vendors on operations will invest into that and will come with that. And economics will see the same on revenue management systems, and that might be the trend. But wait and see. Maybe this will come in the next months.
Okay, fine. So you can proceed with the next part of the presentation.
Okay, so going back to the presentation, I will now we'll go now to the next question, which is what is the biggest barrier to scaling AI? Okay, so let me open the new poll. So there. Okay, open for the members the participants to be able to answer it. And let's continue with the presentation. The next block is we've seen at the very end, the how, And now we are going to quickly go through the end-to-end AI adoption framework. Okay, the question is how we adopt AI. What we typically recommend to our clients is four recommended steps. Okay, the one that we have already discussed, no, we've been discussing, strategize. We need to some extent understand why, from a business understanding, we want to implement AI and for what purpose, no, and with that define steps for AI adoption. We'll now discuss what does it means. Then it's proof of value. You may know or you may have heard proof of concept, MVPs. There are many different concepts into that, but the fact that we are using the word value has a meaning. And the meaning is that when you are doing this very first project that for adoption of AI, you need to make sure beyond that it's functional, it's supporting the actual objective that we want, that this provides ROI. You need to define a certain set of success metrics before the implementation that need to be validated at the very end. That's the only way to reach the return on investment that we are talking before. Okay. After that, you need to industrialize, okay, which is to scale a little bit the concept. And this goes beyond the technology. This means scaling the team, the training around the adoption of the solution. And finally, but not less, is maintain. Okay. Whenever we have an AI solution in place, industrialized, we need to maintain it. And there are different considerations depending on the technology to be considered around that. So from business understanding to adoption or value-driven AI adoption. On the strategy, we should take into consideration first the enablers. No, we've been answering some questions around that. Enablers are like the foundations that we need to implement effectively AI. And here we can differentiate two different types of enablers. On the left side of this radar, we can see the technological ones and the data ones. Okay, those are the typicals that come to mind. The first one: do I have the required infrastructure? No, everything is no. I don't have a data platform. I can do it. Do we have the required analytical capabilities as well? Do we have the required data maturity? And this is very important. Now we'll discuss this. Data maturity means, do we have the required data to push for this AI? Do we have the required data actionability? I mean, the data is accessible, is cleaned, the quality is enough to fit the AI solutions that they want to implement? That's one thing. On the other hand, we have the organizational readiness. It's not only about technology, it's about, do we have the required people? And by the required people is the required culture, for instance. Do we have an IT team that is, because at the very end, AI adoption will come for any department. So in this case, typical thing that we see is that AI is typically led by the IT departments. But at the very end, adoption comes from all departments. So there must be some kind of integration, collaboration ecosystem. No? Strategy. Are there sponsors to push for these AI solutions? What is the organizational model to adopt AI? How are you going to contribute? How are you going to strategize? Under which budgets are we going to account for these AI solutions? No, if we need to buy some licenses or burn continuously some tokens for a specific AI solution. Okay, so this is overall all the elements that we should take into consideration to a certain extent before adopting AI solutions. Are we ready to adopt AI at scale? And this is where we've seen most of the gaps for that 35% that we mentioned before. And on the other hand, we need to take into account what we want to implement. Okay, so to build, as we were discussing before, an AI use case inventory, like a list, like a register of AI solutions that we can implement, no, as a company. What we recommend here is to follow a twofold approach. The first one is an internal mapping. Okay, you need to, as mentioned, go through your processes and with a certain understanding on how AI could support those processes, map those processes, identify the pain points, and identify solutions to support that. Okay, and on the other hand, we need to do an external mapping. Okay, let's take a look into outside. There are many companies that are digital champions out there that are pushing. There's a lot of research, there's a lot of publications, and there are many good ideas out there, and as well technological vendors that could be support to build our inventory. And with that, we have like a big picture on what's out there, what I could implement to improve my to adopt AI, to improve my processes, and based on that, I have an inventory. But then we need to prioritize. We cannot push for everything at the same time. And for that prioritization, typically what we recommend is to evaluate feasibility and business value. So again, we need to evaluate how much will it cost, whether I can implement it or not. Do I have the data? Do I have the right technology? Is my team ready to adopt such kind of solutions? And on the other hand, what is the value that this will provide? And with that, as you can see, we can build some height of matrix for all the inventory that we have. And based on that, we have a certain set of quick wins, which are the ones that we should prioritize first. Okay. Then we move to the development of the proof of value itself. Okay. Very briefly, I will not enter into specifics, but basically this is the typical process that a data scientist or a data or a digital or AI expert will put in place when implementing AI, even a technological vendor, okay? But this is typically provided as a closed package. From data collection to model validation, okay? First, we collect the data, then we cure the data, we select the right models, we develop the selected models, and finally we validate, which has a lot to do with the trustworthiness framework that we were discussing before. Okay, let me go very briefly through each of the steps. Data collection. There are many sources in the airlines, many sources: operational, safety, technical, commercial. As we discussed in the early 20s, there was an increase of data platforms, no? The investment on data platforms to gather data, and based on that, generate analytics, dashboarding, AI solutions, and so on and so forth. We need to collect the right data, not just more data, not all the data. Of course, we need a single source of truth. I need to have single visibility on my company, but we need to strategize because storage cost, consolidation cost, curation costs increase and scale. So we need to select all those data that will provide or that will have a purpose. Okay, define an ownership. That's the cultural and the organizational part. For instance, operational data is under operations. Flight data need to have the safety owner, no, which is the one that is going to protect, for instance, the flight data or the FDR or the quick access recorder. So we need to define a certain ownership, but as well, potentially, those data should be created by the IT. So this kind of operating model is what we need to strategize as well around data collection. This is an example of the iceberg of data for safety. All the bullets are potential safety data sources from occurrences, audits, the fatigue one, then we have the hazard register, a lot of them, and other sources from, I don't know, weather data to delays to actual operational, such as the passenger climate data. There are a lot. We need a prioritization, okay? Because at the very end, enough data is the amount that enables confident, timely decisions or for the AI to be effective. It's not the maximum one. It's not the maximum one because the maximum one is scales with the cost as much as you want. Okay, so we need to be smart around this. The second part is data quality. I don't know if this is a very famous effect, which is the GIGO effect. I don't know if the audience is related to that effect, but means garbage in, garbage out. It means that if the input data is not good, it has not the right quality, the output of the AI will be bad. Okay. It happens the same with the ChatGPT, Claude solutions. If the prompt and the context is not good enough, most probably the answer will not fit your expectations. Okay, so data quality is super important, and that's why it's also important to rationalize the sample of data that we want to consider. There are many data quality phases and quality dimensions. I will not enter into the specifics. This is a typical thing that a data expert would cover under the project. But basically, we need to clean the data. We need to enrich it with other potential data sources. We need to transform it to the actual purpose of the AI solution. And finally, we need to take certain assurances validation. Okay, and there are different fields or dimensions that should be taken into consideration, from accuracy to completeness to integrity. Okay, uniqueness, for instance, in the case of I don't know, occurrence reports, that kind of things. Let me give you two examples on how data quality works for airlines. Okay, for instance, on data preparation, here you may relate to these two examples. On the left side, we have flight data. This is the typical profile of a pressure altitude sensor. Okay, of course, we can recognize the profile of the flight, no? But then we have those spikes. This is the typical anomalous values that we take from already decoded flight data recorder. Okay? There, the accuracy in some elements or some parts of the flight is not good enough. We need, for instance, normalization or a smoothing algorithm to take them out. For instance, to evaluate certain indicators. For other indicators, SPIs, maybe we shouldn't apply such smoothing algorithms. Let me give you an example, a vertical acceleration. A vertical acceleration can have a very similar behavior. But for instance, vertical acceleration may help us in defining, I don't know, wind gusts, no? Turbulence encounters, or a hard landing. For that, this kind of a smoothing algorithm, which may work for some applications, for other may not, no? So even data quality might be somehow defined for the actual purpose, of course, that we have, no? Or the solution that we want to implement. And the second case, Nuria, I don't know if you want to implement it, because this has a lot to do with the works that we are doing for EASA, for instance, no, for civil aviation authorities, the quality on reporting data.
Indeed, here, for example, something typical that we encounter when we have data that is being reported by humans, and usually we have predefined fields. And so here it's an example of safety case that we've been using, but it can as well be in different type of logs. And so that sometimes humans do not always complete all fields, and for then analyzing the data, it is required. And plenty of times we have usually the typical either narrative or comments or other section in this kind of formulas where usually and particularly front-end staff tends to feel more comfortable in actually feeling that than categorizing all the information. So there usually they explain in natural language what actually happened on or why they are feeling this report. Traditionally, it was very complex to actually use and activate this type of fields. Because of the complexity on that. And if you wanted to actually activate those, you needed a lot of human efforts, so a lot of hours dedicated to having people actually reading these fields and then completing the rest of the categories in a structured manner. Nowadays, we can use different type of models to make use of this type of natural language to actually fill and categorize these additional parameters. There and usually what people has the first thing that comes to mind to a lot of people when we discuss this type of activities is okay, let's use LLMs, let's use models such as GPT, such as Claude or whatever, and build an agent that reads this narrative and actually transposes it into these fields, and that with a prompt directly tells me the different categories. There we need to be careful because sometimes it's not the best approach for different perspectives. On the one hand, in terms of accuracy, sometimes this type of models do not give us the appropriate accuracy for that. And also in terms of costs. Sometimes this implies setting up APIs that call each time this type of agents, and this implies a set of cost each time we do these calls. And sometimes what we want to actually extract from the narrative is something that with more simpler models that are less costly, we can obtain and sometimes even higher accuracy, extracting it from the narrative using more traditional natural language processing models and stuff like that, than going to the more complex ones. So here we need a proper strategy to actually build this type of data quality improvements in our data.
Thank you, Nuria. And we have two more examples, which is more around anomaly detection with machine learning. Okay, data quality. Of course, we can place always, as Nuria has mentioned, either we can use static rules, for instance, as the case of data sensors. We can use multiple models at the very same time, to improve the quality. And for instance, an example that was as well that we were discussing with AFRAA to bring you is anomaly detection. Anomaly detection, basically, it's about building clusters. Clusters means dimensions of data or data points that by themselves are very similar or very different. Here you can see, for instance, two different ways in which clustering or helps us in defining anomalies. That it means points of data that are not or do not behave as the others, and based on that, potentially either to identify data quality issues or edge cases worth exploring. In the case of the left, you can see, for instance, fuel consumption clusters. Okay, we identified in the same color you can find the same aircraft types, and we identified two different behaviors. This was a case that we developed with different airlines. Okay, as you can see here, two different behaviors which identified a very simple data quality issue, which is the fact that the units for the flight data recorders for the different airlines were different in different aircrafts, and we had to do some data transformation there. No? And on the left and the right, sorry, we can see some trajectory clusters. In this case, for instance, these are ADSB data, okay? And we can cluster based on the trajectory the routes, no? Or the different flight trajectories, and based on that, define different behaving routes, which in some cases might be real for any reason, okay? And in others might be as well data quality issues. And in fact, Nuria, this is one case, this is one capability that we use, for instance, to calculate asthma, no? The asthma indicator.
Yeah, indeed. So here, what I would say sometimes we are talking about anomaly detection within data quality, but this type of algorithms and type of detections, it's not always something that we use for data quality, but sometimes it's the actual purpose of our analysis to identify particularly these edge cases. So let's not stick with the message that when we detect anomalies, we need to clean them and delete them, because sometimes it's actually what we are looking for.
Sometimes it's the goal, no? Within the data, it's the goal that we are looking for. It's the edge case that will give you a very interesting insight into your operation.
Yeah, no? For example, in operations, because it will give us those operations that we can actually improve or that they are not performing that well. Or in safety traditionally, yes. What we are looking for is those anomalies, because lucky for us, accidents and incidents are an anomaly in our business. So, yeah.
Okay, this is on data quality. Then, in terms of the model, there are, for instance, in this case, it's machine learning, but as you see, there are many different types of models, from rule-based to neural networks, deep learning, which are the more complex one. As you can see, as we go to the right, the accuracy increases, but as well, the interpretability, which means how much I can understand the model, decreases. So typically here, you need as well to be smart around the model that you are selecting for AI adoption. In this case, again, we are speaking about AI, traditional AI, machine learning, okay? But this is very important. Let me give you an example. If we want, for instance, to predict passengers, or we want to predict fuel consumption, a neural network, maybe the accuracy of such models will be amazing, because it's non-linearities, okay? These models are gathering the data, are building non-linearities, very complex model, and the accuracy will be very good. But at the very end, you will not see, because it's like a black box. You input the data, you train it, and it will provide you. It's very difficult, and you need to do some workarounds, some explainability algorithms around that to understand how the neural network is taking the inputs to provide the outputs. So when you want to use this kind of output for instance, for a sea level, without explaining how the model has used the outputs to come up with the prediction, it's very difficult, because you are losing the interpretability of the model. Otherwise, on the other hand, for instance, a typical linear regression, you know, with the different parameters and the weight on the parameters are very easy to explain, but typically a linear regression is not the behavior of any prediction, no? So the accuracy is not that good. Finally, I will not enter the specifics, but whenever you have the model selected, you need to train it and validate it, okay? There are different steps towards that end, which are very technical, but at the end, it depends on what data and features do I select. For instance, do I use, for prediction of the fuel, do I use only the OD pair and the flight duration? Does the gross weight, does the aircraft type, the specific aircraft type provides us more explanation? To which extent these fields are contributing to the accuracy of the algorithm? Then we need to fine-tune the different parameters under which these models are trained. We train the model and we validate them, okay? And there is a certain set of KPIs that we use to evaluate the accuracy, the robustness, the generalization, and as well, of course, the business impact of these kind of models. But just to keep to bear in mind that until this point, step 3, we have just designed the model, but then we need to develop it and we need to train it, which has it's the very important part of the trustworthiness framework, because this train and validation, as you can imagine, is a live thing, okay? And this takes me later on to step 3 and step 4 of this end-to-end framework, okay? Step 3, we have the data, we have the algorithm, we have trained it in a very reduced sample, we have included the AI solution within a reduced, let's say, operational or process, okay? Now we need to scale it. Beyond that data, we need to consider 4 different things. We need to train the people, We need to make sure that our infrastructure is capable of scaling, industrializing the algorithm and the solution. We need to build, as discussed previously, data and AI governance around that, the data quality, the ownership, that we are complying with the right frameworks at corporate, national level, and then strategic follow-up. If this is to provide a value, we should monitor with KPIs that the value of the solution is being achieved. And finally, maintain. Okay, these are three problems, not exhaustive, but the three main problems that kill, let's say, the AI solutions. AI solutions are typically not one-off. Of course, I've seen a question that I will address later on whether enterprise with AI solutions or build on. So it doesn't matter. It's always the same. AI solutions drift with time. The thing is that if you train with a historical data to come up with future or recommendations or even LLMs, this training will be drifted as time goes by. Okay, so we need to ensure that I believe that someone is now. Okay, you need to make sure and build the right operational processes, or the vendor should provide it, to make sure that these models will remain accurate along the time. Okay, so data drift, both the data that inputs the model and as well the model accuracy will remain in time. And for that, the model should be retrained, okay, in a recurrent way and validated. And the third problem, which has more to do with the operational side, and we've seen it in many places, if the user does not use it, the AI solution will tend to disappear. So all the investment that we've done, for instance, if we buy Copilot licenses, but no one uses it because they don't have the right training or they don't know how this supports their processes beyond using the chat, eventually the users will abandon the solution, and this will kill as well the investment. Okay, so these are three main problems that we identified, and maintenance on the AI solutions are very important. With that, we reach the end of this blog, which was the end-to-end implementation framework. And now, Maureen, I believe that we can go again to review whether there are questions and as well the results of the survey.
Yes, Antonio, thank you very much. Indeed, we do have some questions on the chat box. I think we can start with those.
Yes, sure.
Sure, thank you. So we have Farouk. I think we already answered Farouk before. We have Sonia, who asks, imagine agentic AI is created to optimize a particular operational process. Who is eventually responsible of that outcome? Is it the AI itself, the manufacturer, or the human designer of that AI?
It is a very interesting question, and one that I think it keeps awake plenty of the of the industry each time they need to put into production an AI solution. I would say it depends a lot, and here it's a hot topic in the industry, and not only in aviation. In I would say overall in AI, and some actors, particularly from the regulatory perspective, they are trying to put some guidelines into that. For example, as Antonio mentioned previously, on Europe, we have the AI Act, which is one of the most detailed, I would say, regulations in the world right now. And then in aviation, EASA has transposed it into a set of AI papers, digging a bit deeper into this topic and into this question, as well as in all other relevant questions on how to deploy and develop AI in a sustainable manner, ensuring that safety is always maintained and that we keep the control of what we are doing. Here, I would say that it depends a lot on the actual problem, and to put it into a very basic manner, one thing is the AI that you put in place, or let's call it the system or the tool that you put in place to support a certain process, and then there's another part there into the responsibility that is what you do with what this tool actually tells you. Because decision making, and particularly in critical operational environments, is usually stick to and still human in the loop decision making processes. So here, we need to make sure that this relationship between machine and human, it's well designed when we design the AI solution. And as mentioned by Antonio, we have the appropriate explainability of the proposals or the solutions provided by the AI tool, so that the human that needs to make the decisions based on those results is actually capable of making those decisions with an informed in an informed manner, okay, and not blindly just because AI says so.
Thank you. Then you have one last one from the chat box, Hans Raj from Air Mauritius. With AI increasingly embedded in core enterprise solutions used by airlines, e.g. training management, revenue management, crew scheduling, etc., is the most effective path to AI maturity to maximize these existing capabilities rather than pursuing new untested AI use cases or use cases which may not work for some airlines due to data quality or due to some other reason. So which way to go?
There it comes back to the strategy.
To increase the maturity, what do we understand by maturity? If it means just doing the check on I'm using AI for the sake of AI, yes, because at the end, it's true that there is a lot of technological vendors that are including AI layers. For these big systems, as AFRAA is commenting, it's true that the worth potential path is going for actually certified and trustworthy vendors with a trajectory. But it's true that this will make us have AI as we could have any other technological solution, but will not increase our maturity unless we, for instance, make a reflection around AI. We start building some capabilities and some culture around AI in our company, our maturity, and we start building some foundations on our data. This will increase our maturity. It's not only a matter of adoption, but more about how far we are in terms of the foundation that we are building. Of course, always being rational around our size, no, and the complexity of our company. It's true that the untested AI use case or use case in which he says that may use airline data that is not available. Of course, for those cases that he's commenting, I would go for technological vendor solutions, but there are many more that are very small and let's say that fit gaps within the operational efficiency that might be built. And for that maturity that we were discussing will be needed.
Yeah, thank you. So you can take the questions on the Slido.
I can take the questions on the Slido. I can see here, for instance, for those who haven't started yet, do you just suggest going for easy, fast gains or jumping and adapting to advanced systems immediately? That's an easy one, no, Nuria?
Sorry,
the easy fast gains. I believe that the first step is to do a small step, okay, and by that start increasing your maturity. Of course, if you have already some technological vendor that is offering you a particular solution that will be strategic for your operation, and this would be like a more advanced jump, evaluate it cautiously with a business case and so forth, and go for it. But in general terms, I would say easy, fast gains, of course, the quick wins. Could you recommend airlines to employ AI-generated internal platforms? So we are speaking here about vibe coding, no? Like crew scheduling, CRMs, inventory management, etc., instead of paying premiums for them. That's a very interesting question.
Yes, it is. And I would say that it depends a lot on the airline and the maturity of the staff actually developing this type of platforms. Vibe coding is very attractive because you can develop very, very quick, very complex stuff, but we need to be careful on actually developing, particularly for critical systems, being critical from a safety perspective or from a business perspective, without actually understanding what we are doing. What do I refer with that part? A system that works or that seems to work and that answers a set of questions and gives us results doesn't mean that it works well. And there's this last step on these 4 steps that we mentioned, that is the maintenance one. If we write code without giving the proper coding structure, the proper validation on the code, on the development, once we want to increase that platform, improve, upgrade, or even we identify certain problems and we need to resolve them, we will have issues actually doing that, because we will have no one from our staff really knowing and understanding how the code is structured and how this platform actually works. So there we might reach a point where we have several issues in really using it. This point might come not now, it might come in 1 year, in 2 years, maybe even longer, but it will come. So we need to be very careful in with that. If we have the appropriate environment, vibe coding works really great, but we need to have the proper environment and maturity to do so.
Precisely. The next question is around what practical steps help business teams trust AI-generated insights, especially when used for forecasting or anomaly detection. Maybe later on, no, this one with the case on the passenger forecasting will somehow provide like a more grounded answer.
Yeah.
How long it will take to go through the 4 steps for airlines? It depends on the case, no, and it depends on the AI solution that you want to implement. There are very simple one that maybe in 1 month, 2 months you could implement it.
Yeah,
No,
there are cases
that are super simple. There are other AI solutions that will take months or even more than that. No, and even for technological vendors, if you purchase some AI solution. Close one, let's say like a package, most probably they will provide like a integration phase, validation phase, until you have the system ready. So it takes a lot. On the strategic part, on the reflection, it depends as well on the complexity, no? But mostly a strategic reflection around that at airline level, I don't know, Nuria, maybe weeks, no? Something like weeks.
Yeah, a couple of months, maybe.
Couple of months, yes.
Depends also if we want to start only focusing on certain areas, maybe first focusing on operations and then scaling it to the rest. There are different ways that we can develop it.
Yes.
But yeah, it's on the matter of weeks, the strategy, and then depending on the actual cases that we want to implement.
Precisely. I believe that we've reached, Maureen, the end of the questions in the Q&A. Let me go to the poll, to the active poll.
Okay.
Sorry, that one. What is the biggest barrier to scaling AI? 36%, data validity and quality. This makes a lot of sense. No, Nuria?
Yeah, totally.
This is typically the typical entry challenge, and in fact, is the first one for the question that we had in the previous round. What is the top challenge that African and worldwide airlines is facing? Data availability and quality as a foundation. Then there is a share on technology, governance, business sponsorship. Okay, and the last one is. Sorry, I cannot see it.
It's the skills.
The skills. Well, yeah, makes sense. Skills and people. The last one. This is quite aligned, no, with what we've seen in the industry.
Yeah, totally. Usually, data availability at the end, it's the core enabler, and the one that it's harder to obtain, because technology, you can buy new technology, you can buy new infrastructure in case you don't have it. While data, if you haven't recorded and stored it, it's very, very difficult to overcome this gap, as we've mentioned previously. So yeah, fully in line with what we see in other areas, and therefore it's one of the first enablers and topics where we need to put our focus. Also, when we discussed on the strategy and the prioritization of these use cases, that's why we always tackle it with these two dimensions. On the one hand, the value that the use case will bring to us, but then we always need to rationalize it with the feasibility. And within the feasibility, of course, data availability is one of the main topics. It's great to have use cases in our inventory that adds a lot of value, but if we do not have the data to actually implement it, it's a useless inventory then. Yeah.
Exactly. You see, business sponsorship is taking a little bit of...
It's starting to increase.
For business sponsorship, I believe that the solution is a business case. strategy with a business case. If you show off a little bit, showcase the value of AI adoption, which is overall, I believe, the core message of today's webinar. AI is there to increase the revenues, to reduce costs. There are solutions, many effective solutions that for any money that you invest, it will provide return, and that's what builds in sponsorship.
Yeah.
Okay, it's taking the lead.
Yeah, and also taking these baby steps. So you do not need to go for the biggest case that will bring the biggest ROI, because usually those cases are the most complex to implement and therefore the ones that need much more investment. Sometimes picking up a first proof of value that is smaller, but as mentioned by Antonio, that ensures this return, it's key. Because it's a small investment, but then our C-levels and so understand really, okay, this is actually what I am investing. This is actually the return that I found. I have a proper mechanism to prioritize and to make sure that each money that I bring to the table actually brings certain benefits. So then it's easier to get their sponsorship.
Yes, and it's typically the approach that we follow with our clients. We sit with them, we strategize a little bit, we evaluate what use cases could be of better benefit, and we pick 3 or 2 of them, which are like the champion horse, like the 2 quick wins that will pitch to the C-levels to evaluate whether they want to continue investing or not. Or they need further, as you see, data enablers, foundations to continue with the AI adoption initiatives. Okay. With that, Maureen, I don't know if we could continue maybe with the last part of the presentation. Let's go with the use cases.
Yes, we can. But you have one last question on the chat box. Farouk Sholeh from Overland Airways has rephrased their question. I hope it's clearer. He asks, once the implementation of AI, specifically ALG, how do you address the merging of our past or historical data to the current and onward data after the implementation of AI? Will our past data be gone or abandoned, or will we go back to our manual or old ways of referencing our data from our past records? Or is there a way for you to make this easier to reference past data after implementation of AI?
At the end of the day, to be able to build and implement AI on top of our data, we need to have our data available somewhere where we can actually work with it. Therefore, we can always go back to this data. And in fact, it's the first step to make sure that we have the data, that we can access the data, and then start cleaning and preparing it for after usage. Then also, it depends a lot on what type of AI. Here, we might think of AI as one single thing, but there are a lot of different, as mentioned, different models, and not only thinking of AI, but as well thinking of business intelligence, that usually is the first step, building dashboards to get this better understanding of what data tells us and where we have, for example, our performance and so on. It's key. So it's data flows need to be built on a continuous manner so that it keeps on increasing, and we do not see this gap between historical and future or after implementation. There sometimes we need to account for recording additional steps or additional parameters. For example, depending on the type of model that we are putting in place, imagine that we develop a certain model to help us identify delays, predict delays, that we can act upon it. It will be key for us in the future to record somehow the actions that our personnel makes based on the output of our model. Because if not, if we retrain then our algorithm with the past data only, or the new data only based on delays, we will probably see a reduction of delays, and then therefore our prediction will imply that those actions are being taken by our staff, but the trigger to those actions that is actually a prediction of the delay will no longer be there, and therefore our staff will not actually trigger those actions. So this is something that when we design models and we put them into operations, we need we need to take it into account. It's not just developing an algorithm, but it's actually seeing, okay, this algorithm, this model, this implementation, in which process are we implementing it, and therefore how we need to modify our process and our process from decision, people actually making actions, and data gathering from that step onwards, to make sure that in the future we can keep on referencing to that data to keep on improving.
I hope that answers your question, Farouk. And that was the last question on the chat. Antonio, you can proceed.
I will go then to the next part of the presentation. I believe that we are reaching the end of the slot for today's webinar, but I have opened the next question and the last one, which is, what is your main objective for adopting AI? Okay, you have in the Slido, you can go to it and answer it, and after this block, we'll review the answers. So let's go with the final block, which is the interesting one, practical use cases that we've done, which some of them cover part of the question that we've had, no?
Yeah,
so,
indeed. I will try to go a bit quick over the different case studies to make sure that we still have some minutes for questions and answers. Anyhow, if there are some questions that we cannot answer in the time that we have available, we will be fully available afterward via email or whatever to answer them. The first case study, it relates a lot with some of the questions that we have on passenger forecasting. We've had, and we've delivered for a couple of clients, a set of passenger forecasting tools that they're the first thing that I want to put on the table when we talk about passenger forecasting is that for sure there's no one fits all, and here there are a lot of dimensions that we need to take into account. In this case, for example, we see here a dashboard that was outputting the results of a long-term passenger forecasting for an airport, and here it's worth mentioning this part of the long-term passenger forecast. The time horizon is very important, and we will develop different type of models depending on the objective of our forecasting and the time horizon. Okay, so we cannot use the same model for predicting or forecasting passengers for tomorrow or for next month or for next season or for the next 10 years. And those fit different business processes. So here, this is something that we need to take into account. And considering the explainability that before we referred to, as you can see, the output of this tool is not just the output of the forecast. It has different components that allow actually the user to fine-tune the results and as well to grasp this information on why the model is outputting these results so that I can make appropriate actions and recommendations to our, in this case, it was to our C-level. Okay. If we go to the next slide, here we have an example of, for example, how this tool was built behind it and the different models that it had. In this case, we had a set of data sources that we were collecting, multiple of them, different processing processes for each type of data, then a couple of generic models. I would say that's demand and capacity, even though within those boxes are quite several models developed that are conveyed into one single one. And finally, all of this was building the final passenger forecasting, where we mix the capacity versus the demand model, and we had these passenger projections. Nevertheless, this structure, as mentioned, it's not one fits all. It needs to be it needs to be tailored to what is our final end goal. If we go to the next one, it's one that's more focused on operations. And in this case, it was for one airline that wanted to increase the predictability of their flights because they were having a lot of issues with delays and congestion. And here we identified different problems in different time horizons. On the one hand, they had issues with the slot request. So at strategic level, more than 6 months in advance to the operation. And there we needed to identify, and we developed a model, a machine learning model that identified particularly critical flights and where we needed to add buffers into the operation instead of having homogeneous buffers overall the flight. So making sure that when requesting these slots, we were actually adding buffers to those flights that were actually critical, and so they requested the appropriate slots without having then afterwards the penalizations for not complying with the historical slot on congested airports. And on the tactical side, due to these delays, it refers to the case that I mentioned previously. The airline wanted to be able to react in tactical phase to the delays, and in some cases implement some reduced turnaround processes, and therefore they needed a model that was able to predict the expected of block times and different time horizons. If we go to the next slide, we have, for example, these different scenarios that we implemented. Ideally, this would be implemented on a continuous manner, so that each time we have an update on the input data, our model is outputting a new prediction. In this case, going back to the 4 steps that we've mentioned, it was a first proof of value, and therefore, instead of building the full-fledged solution that would be very costly and would take us a lot of time to actually put into production, we selected 2 prediction times in these scenarios: when the flight was departing from the origin airport and when the flight landed in the airport that it was having the turnaround. And therefore, the airline could test the value that it brought to them, these type of solutions, and afterwards invest into the full solution. But they already had something up and running that worked and that improved their operations. Here worth mentioning, and it relates as well to the data part that we've mentioned before, we did a full inventory of all data that could be useful to develop these models, but we did not incorporate each and every piece of information and each and every piece of data into this proof of value, for different reasons. Some of those because data was not actually available anywhere on the organization because they were not capturing that. So there what we included was an action on their roadmap for data strategy to capture it in the future, and a certain set of initiatives and actions to incorporate this data into their future platform. In other cases, even though the data was available, it was not fully available, covering all the data set that we had, or it actually, within operations, it did not came with enough time to the platform so that it could be used for our model. Therefore, we decided not to use it. And for some others, it was too costly to include it. So we preferred, as mentioned, as we were developing a proof of value, we prefer going for something smaller that incorporated the key elements that were useful to assess this value and to have a first prototype up and running that already provided value to the airline from day one of entering into operations. And there, what it translated into actual value in the models that we developed for the strategic phase, it increased the accuracy of block time predictions between 78 to 95% between other years. And this implied actually recovering, I think, between 2 and 3 aircrafts, between increasing 2 or 3 aircrafts, the productivity per day, which, as you can imagine, it's quite a lot for an airline. And this particular one, they were very congested, so they already had a very high usage of aircraft. So this implied actual revenue for them. Also, in the tactical phase, we could decrease the error in the prediction of block times to less than 5 minutes, which, as mentioned, it helped them actually make the appropriate decisions and activate reduced turnaround processes to recover for delays and avoid domino effect into their network of operations. If we go to the third case study, that is more how we use AI on the safety side, and here we can relate to safety intelligence initiatives. Here we presented briefly the Data for Safety program. Not sure if you've heard. It's a collaborative initiative at a European level led by EASA, where we are both the platform and the data science provider for the project. And this collaborative project joins all the industry together into one single program, and they put together all the data into this platform, all the data related to safety, flight data, safety reports, weather data, traffic data, navigation databases, etc. And we aim to identify the safety issues at European level, build proper risk assessments with a very deep data-driven analysis, and be able to measure performance and as well blind benchmark one company with another one so that each airline, for example, can identify where they are having major issues. Here, this is one of the potential examples that we could have of some of the outputs where we could analyze certain set of events and the evolution of this event to better understand where we are having issues and where we need to dig deeper into analyzing what is happening there, for example, for the CAA to actually make actions, recommendations, review regulation, etc. So this is one use case that could be as well not only useful for the airlines, but as well for other stakeholders such as the CAA that we were mentioning before. And in this case also we have this part of tackling reports that I mentioned before, where we are using different technologies for that. For example, to identify, classify, and categorize safety reports using different types of NLP, for more complex to more simple ones. We also are building capabilities to automatically generate safety occurrences reports. For example, having the front staff conversating in a natural language, either chatting or by voice, with a tool that really fills the full report that can take right now more than 10 minutes to the front line, and instead, thanks to using that, it takes just a couple of minutes of actually explaining it. Okay, so we are trying to maximize the efficiency and increase on the other side the intelligence that we can obtain from the safety data sources that we have. So last case. Do you want to?
Well, just to give a word to the audience that we've not been involved in the previous case. We were the implementation and designer of the cases. In that one, we've done some research in the internet, but just to say that we can see already some news and some information out there showcasing how Africa airline and aviation industry is already starting implementing adoption. No, so there is an appetite. There are as well some, as we've seen as well from the poll, from the polls, there are already some members, that are pushing for AI adoption. And with that, we would like just to cover and close the discussion with maybe the final part, which is where to start and the final remarks, which we have somehow covered in the discussion, but just quick 4 tips to close the discussion.
Key takeaways.
The first one is, again, remember, strategize, okay? AI should be driven by business value and return on investment. You should strategize, select first the quick wins, and for that we need to understand how AI is going to contribute to our strategic objectives. Secondly, focus on trusted data foundation enablers. It's very important. Data should be curated, not all the data, select small samples, the data that is strategic to support the AI that you want to adopt, but as well the cultural change management. Train your people and build your own organizational capabilities. Start small with simple solutions and then scale. Okay, we've seen some questions around that. There is always the flagship projects. There's like this trend of adopting the biggest platform. No, just start small with something that as well supports the increasing of your maturity as a company. And finally, this AI is a continuous capability. We typically use AI, digital transformation. It's not a transformation, in fact. It's like a path, like a journey, a continuous journey for any capability of continuous transformation. So this is not a one-time project, and that's why we stress the importance of building the right foundations and the right strategy around AI adoption, because AI is here to stay. With that, thank you very much. Now we'll move to the questions, answers as well. We'll review the Slido.
Thank you, Antonio and Nuria. We have 2 questions on the chat. Maybe we could start with those.
Sure.
See, the first one we have, I think it's just one. We have Lorato, who's asking, for airlines operating with constrained schedules, how can AI be used to generate reliable passenger demand forecasts that support planning and decision making?
As mentioned, we need to consider the problem itself, identify properly, for example, as mentioned, the time horizon, evaluate the data that we have available, and so, and then from that select the most appropriate mechanism or tools or algorithms to build this passenger demand forecast, considering these different dimensions that we have in addition. How accurate we need this forecast to be, how explainable we need it to be, so that we build the appropriate tool. As mentioned, there's no one fits all.
No, because here there are many strategies. We can handle this at strategic or pre-planning level to identify, for instance, potential connecting air flights that for some reason the connection might be challenging at a specific airport. We can land this at very even passenger level, to do some. But for that, we need, of course, the detailed milestone passenger processing data of our network. Maybe we don't need the full network. Maybe we can focus on our hub, because in our hub and around specific routes, we have more data. So there are different strategies around that can be used. And what to prioritize? The use case that better provides or will have the more impact to your operation. And for that, a reflection should be done. But that will be our answer.
Thank you. I hope that answers your question, Lorato. We'll move to the questions on Slido, if any.
Let me see how safe this one we've answered. As a data analyst, how is this task relevant? Do you need any prerequisite knowledge or skills to use this tool from scratch? We've lost maybe the moment where this question has been issued. If anonymous, you can issue some additional clarifying question. We'll try to answer, because we don't know which task you are referring.
Yeah.
In any case, Maureen, in the meantime, we can go to the poll. No.
Yes, you can.
There are 10 answers. Improve operational efficiency. That's 70%, which has a lot to do as well with what we've seen before, no? Cost challenges, no? Growing a lot, increase revenue, improve safety a little bit, and then customer experience and reduce costs. It makes a lot of sense, no? Operational. In fact, most of the questions that we received today are focused on operational improvement. I've seen some on the passenger side, some others more on the improvement of the turnaround, optimization of the turnaround.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense considering the environment that we have in
the African environment, the challenges that as well AFRAA has introduced at the very beginning of this webinar.
Okay. Yeah, we have a couple of more questions on the chat box. First one from Hans Raj, Air Mauritius. ALG has presented some very interesting case studies. Are the underlying AI models proprietary to the airlines they were created for, or can ALG redeploy them at a cost for other airlines to use, after, of course, ensuring the right data are available and maybe retraining?
Then there's a combination, I would say, of options depending on the solution that we are putting there. There, I think it's key, the last part that you mentioned in your comment on ensuring the right data are available and maybe retraining. Also, the first thing that we would need as well to identify is if actually the question that we want to answer is exactly the same from the other one, because maybe it is not exactly the same and we need to even redo some of the models. So we would need to evaluate the exact case and then see what we can reuse. As from a company perspective, we always try to reuse as much as possible the knowledge that we have from previous projects so that we can offer our clients the most cost-effective solutions. So in case the problem that the client comes to us with is something that we have already covered in some other projects, that we have the proprietary, so that we are the owners of that outcome, and we can redeploy it with a very small cost for the client, that will always be our preferred solution. Also, if what the problem comes from the client, the best solution is not actually our model, but the best solution is an off-the-shelf product that is not sold by us, but is sold by some other company. We will always advise for those cases instead of building a full-fledged solution when it makes no sense to do that. Okay, so that is also something to keep in mind.
Okay, and then you have one additional questions from Medupe, Air Botswana. In reference to passenger forecasting, how do we address AI forecasting in terms of accuracy, considering the changing market forces, such as entry and exit of competitors in the market, changing business patterns, etc.? And I can also add industry shocks.
Very interesting and very relevant, considering the times that we are currently facing worldwide. And actually, this is one of the questions that we tackled in that particular project, in one of the forecasting models and tools that we developed for one airport, because they were having on a kind of regular basis some airlines, and particularly low-cost airlines, entering and exiting the airport. So they wanted to capture that part. There, after evaluating the case, the particular case, what we decided was to implement a different, a two-layer approach. First, we developed a first baseline model that was fed with the historical baseline that we had, and that tried to capture the stable forecast, to say
the trend.
Yeah, the major trend. And then on top of that, we built another layer that actually tried to cover this kind of scenarios into the forecast. And it covered and it tackled in different ways. On the one hand, it tried to tackle it identifying with the very small newer information that we had. So we were actually building the model using data from several past years to build the trend, but then we were only using the last few months to try to capture with this dynamism on the market, this fluctuation, and adjust the final picture, particularly for the first month of the prediction of the forecast, so that it adjusted to those dynamisms that were not linked to the yearly trends, but more to the last month's trends. And then also we built a capability on top of that as well for the analysts from the airport to be able to force these kind of scenarios, because sometimes they knew that one airline would be stopping operations in 3 months, and therefore they could parameterize this easily into the front end, so into the tool, so that the forecast took that into account. So they said, okay, from that day onwards, consider that this airline will stop flying. And then the forecast adjusted to that condition. So as mentioned, it depends a lot on actually what we want, what the business and the end user will need to use this information for. I don't know if there's any additional question, Maureen, on the chat or on the Slido.
On the chat, I think we have exhausted all questions from the chat box. Thank you.
And on the Slido as well.
Okay, great. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attention. We can now move to the closing of today's webinar, which has been quite informative and eye-opening. We also have gotten some insights from practical use cases, a couple of airlines. It's always good to see practical examples and to really get an idea and a visibility of how you can implement such kind of projects and ideas for your airline. So to conclude and wrap it up, just some 4 key messages from the webinar today. The first one, and very important, AI must be driven by business value and ROI, not hype, not strategy, and not to just implement AI for moving with the trends, but to ensure that it's bringing you ROI. So there's an importance to strategize. 2, we need to build trusted data foundations before you scale. So remember, as I mentioned from ALG, garbage in, garbage out. So you need to ensure that you need to build trusted data foundations first before you can scale. 3, start small, prove the value, then scale, and ensure that all the AI that you're implementing is addressing your needs as an airline, not to copy paste what someone else is doing, but to look at your pain points and how you can customize the AI and data to address those needs. And 4, AI is not a project that you finish. It's a continuous process. So there's no one single time that you'll have your AI strategy done, dusted, and you can move on. It is a strategy that is a continuous process. So let us keep that flowing within our airlines. From AFRAA side, we really appreciate our partner ALG for working with us for this webinar. And I want to invite Nuria to give some closing remarks before we end today's session.
Thank you, Maureen. I think you covered it pretty well. The key messages that we wanted to transmit to the audience, as you mentioned, these key takeaways that we think are the main ones to bring back home. From our side, I wanted to thank each and every participant, particularly those of you who participated actively into the chat, asking questions and interacting with us and interacting through the poll, because it made our life much easier. And it's always a pain when you start giving a webinar and you have no response back. So it makes our life much easier, and it allows us to focus a bit more the webinar to the interests of the audience, which is not always easy from the starting point to understand. So thanks a lot, and thanks a lot to AFRAA to give us this opportunity in this space to be able to share this information with the rest of the audience. We will be more than happy, as mentioned, to keep in touch in case someone wants to dig a bit deeper into the different points that we have discussed during the webinar. So happy to connect with the colleagues on the different airlines and see where they are actually now, their main challenges and their real barriers, and help them overcome them.
Thank you very much. So ladies and gentlemen, we shall be sharing the slides after the webinar, and also the contacts of ALG team for those who might wish to further engage on a one-on-one regarding any specific area of support. And the recording of this session, in case you want to go back and re-listen, is going to be made available on AFRAA YouTube channel in the next coming days. So you shall be able to share that even with your colleagues who may have wished to join us and they did not get a chance to participate in this webinar. From us at AFRAA, thank you very much, and see you at our next webinar. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.